When Human came home, he found an alien woman with no clothes, no hope, and he was shocked. The elevator doors opened with a short, tired hiss. Warm light from Tier 9 spilled in, mixing with the cooler air from the shaft. Yarrick Thalen stepped out, shoulders straight, uniform jacket unzipped halfway, thermal grid tablet hanging from a strap against his hip. He felt drained. His eyes burned from staring at system graphs for 12 hours. His neck muscles ached from sitting too rigid in a chair that was never designed for someone who had spent a decade on patrol decks. He walked anyway with the same measured pace he had used on ships and in city raids. Feet steady, weight centered, no wasted movement. The corridor stretched ahead in a long, narrow line. Amber strips ran along the ceiling, giving the metal walls a muted glow. The floor panels were damp. The tower collected moisture even up here, and the cleaning drones never caught all of it. Heat pipes lined the left side, sealed behind dull plating that vibrated gently under his fingertips when he brushed past. The sound of the pipes calmed him. This was his work now. Keep the thermal grid balanced. Keep people from freezing in their sleep or cooking in their rooms. No metals, no news feeds. Just steady numbers on a screen and alarms when someone further up the chain forgot how to read them. He passed unit doors with faded numbers. 09-317, 09-318. He knew which ones housed families and which were single occupancy. Most nights, he preferred stretches of door where no one lingered. No kids in the corridor. No arguments over ration totals. Tier 9 suited him. It was too damp and too close to the trunk for the tower's more ambitious residents. He adjusted the tablet strap on his shoulder and stretched his fingers once, quietly. The movement made the scar along his right palm pull. He ignored it. Old work. Old mistakes. He had chosen this posting after his discharge. No more leading squads through broken neighborhoods. No more counting bodies after a stabilization. Now his mission was simple and measurable. Heat in, heat out, grid stable. Keep the system alive and anonymous. Stay out of sight. He turned the last corner and saw his door halfway down the line. 09-332. Close to a junction where one of the main heat risers passed. Warmer than most units on the tier. That had been the point when he picked it. As he approached, something tightened low in his chest. The strip of light at the base of his door glowed brighter than usual. A thin draft slid under it, brushing his ankles. The air on this side of the panel was colder than it should have been. The heater inside was working too hard. He stopped one step back, body shifting without thought. Weight went to the balls of his feet. Spine straightened. One hand loosened near his side, ready for balance or strike. The old training came back in an instant, cutting through the fatigue. He swiped his keycard through the reader, but slower this time, listening. The lock clicked. The door slid open. Cold air hit his face. The small unit's heat was bleeding out into the corridor. The room glowed in low orange from the wall heater near the far wall and a dull blue from the kitchen display screen. Shadows stretched across the floor from the heater base. He stepped inside and pressed the door shut with his palm. The panel thudded, closed behind him. Someone else was breathing in his unit. He saw her near the heater. She stood less than a meter from it, bare feet on the metal floor. Her skin was a pale, washed-out green. Not bright, not stylized. A sickly tone that came from weeks of bad food and worse sleep. Her ribs showed under it, each one marked by a faint hollow. Long white hair hung around her shoulders and back, unevenly cut, clumped together in places where it had dried without combing. She was not wearing anything. Her arms were clamped over her chest, forearms crossed tight, hands digging in her upper arms. Her shoulders hunched forward. She kept her knees close, thighs touching, trying to cover as much as she could with her own body. The heater's orange light washed across her, picking out the sharp lines of bone and the dark hollows under her eyes. For a second, neither of them moved. Her gaze locked onto his. Fear hit him in a clean, efficient wave. His heart rate jumped. His breathing shortened but stayed under control. The fear had nothing to do with her body and everything to do with the fact that someone had crossed his threshold without him noticing. His training did the next part. He closed the distance quickly. 3 hard steps. His boots landed with solid metal thumps. He reached out and grabbed her by the forearm. Her skin felt icy, almost numb under his fingers. Her arm was light in his grip in a way that did not match an adult body. Too little muscle, too much bone. He pulled her away from the heater, turning her toward the door. "What are you doing in here?" he said. His voice came out low, flat, and controlled. No raised volume, no wasted words. The tone that used to cut through alarms and weapon fire. She stumbled with the sudden movement. Her bare heels slid against the cold metal floor. The wrench on her arm dragged her torso to the side, pulling the crossed arms away from her chest. For a moment, she was exposed and she flinched hard, jerking her elbows in again, fighting to cover herself without actually fighting him. She did not claw at his hand. She did not try to twist free. Her eyes stayed on the door. Her mouth pressed into a thin line. When she spoke, her voice sounded worn and dry. "I came in from the corridor," she said. "The vent by your frame leaks heat. I cannot feel my hands. I used your lock seam to get the door open. I thought you would be later." He kept his grip on her arm and walked her closer to the exit. He could feel the shake in her muscles as she moved, a fine vibration that ran from her shoulder into his hand. "You broke into my unit," he said. "You picked the wrong door." "I picked the warmest door," she said. The honesty in that almost made him stop. Almost. He reached for the door control with his free hand. The cold from her skin seeped into his palm and wrist. It sharpened his focus. This was not a drunk neighbor wandering into the wrong room. This was a desperate body that had made deliberate choices all the way to his heater. "How long since you ate?" he asked. She hesitated. Her jaw clenched. "I do not remember," she said. "Before the last cleaning cycle. There was a soup line. They closed it when the pot scraped." Her stomach answered for her. A low, painful growl vibrated through her abdomen. He felt the movement in the tendons of her arm. Empathy cut across his anger. It surprised him how fast it cut. He stared at the panel control. He could open the door and push her into the corridor. Security would log a trespasser. They would send someone eventually. In the time it took them to respond, she would either find another vent or collapse between doors. If she died there, she would become a complaint in the system and a line in a maintenance report. He had seen that chain of events too many times from the other side. "I will go," she said. Her voice was quieter now, but steady. "I know what this is. You caught me. You put me out. You get to sleep." He turned his head and looked at her face properly. Her eyes were a muted, dark gold. The whites were faintly reddened from lack of sleep. Her lips were cracked. A faint smear of dirt ran along one cheek, over the ridge of her nose. Her expression held no drama, no begging, just acceptance. He felt stress climb up the back of his neck. It pressed at the base of his skull, asking for a decision. "I did not take anything," she added. "I did not touch your things. I only stood where the heat touched the metal." The detail sat with him. She had broken into his home and stayed standing, rather than tearing through cupboards or collapsing on his bed. He let go of her arm. The motion surprised her. Her body rocked forward a little, as if it had prepared for a shove that did not arrive. She pulled herself back together quickly, arms closing over her chest again, shoulders hunching tighter. He took 2 steps back from the door, away from her and away from the easy solution. "Stay there," he said. He moved to the cabinet in the sleeping alcove, opened the lower section, and pulled out his thickest thermal blanket. The fabric was a heavy charcoal gray, dense enough to hold heat. He grabbed a dark blue long-sleeved shirt from a hook. The shirt was a size too big even for him, something he wore when a tear dropped more than usual. He brought both items back and set them on the chair nearest the heater. His eyes stayed above her collarbones. "Put that on," he said. "Then sit by the heater. You're not going out there with no clothes and a body temperature this low." She frowned, confused. "You are not calling security," she said. "If I wanted them involved, I would not be giving you my shirt," he said. He stepped away and turned partly to the side, enough to give her space that did not feel like a spotlight. Her hand shook as she reached for the shirt. She pulled it over her head, movements clumsy from cold and exhaustion. Her hair caught in the collar. She tugged it free with small, sharp motions. The hem fell to mid-thigh. The sleeves hung over her hands, covering her fingers. One shoulder slipped, exposing green skin and the sharp curve of her shoulder blade. She yanked the collar back up and glanced at him to see if he had seen. He kept his gaze on the heater display. She grabbed the blanket and wrapped it around herself, pulling the ends together at her chest. The weight of it settled over her, and her knees buckled a little with the sudden change. She sat down hard on the floor before the heater, back against the wall, blanket gathered around her legs. The heater's glow washed over her face and arms. Steam rose faintly from the edges of the blanket as it started to trap the hot air. He adjusted the heater down from its maximum setting. The panel under his fingers felt warm, but not dangerous now. "You will crack the unit if you keep it at full for an hour," he said. "Then none of us keeps warm." "I thought I had until you came," she said. "You misjudged my schedule," he answered. "You are not the first." He walked to the small kitchen strip, opened the cold unit, and scanned the contents. One sealed tray of Bryn beef slices, a container of Zyron grain curls, 2 sealed cups of Larn fruit nectar, enough for 2 smaller meals if he was careful. Hunger pushed against the back of his own throat. He had planned to eat that tray alone, drink the nectar, and be done with the day. The plan shifted in his head without much ceremony. He pulled the tray and curls out, peeled the seal, and slid them into the heater slot. The unit beeped when he set the time. Heating coils lit with a low, red glow. The smell of raw protein and grain filled the air, then changed slowly as the meat warmed and the fat began to melt. Behind him, he heard her breathing change. The scent of Bryn reached her, and her breath came a little faster. "What is that?" she asked. "Bryn slices and grain curls," he said. "You eat meat. If it is dead and hot, I eat it," she said. "I do not ask what they called the animal before it went into the vat." There was a hint of dry humor in her voice now. It told him that her mind had not completely shut down. The cooker chimed. He took the tray out carefully. The metal base burned his fingertips even through his calluses. He sat on the table, grabbed a fork and one of the cheap ceramic plates from the shelf. He served a heavy portion of meat and grain onto the plate and carried it over to her. She watched him with suspicion and hope mixed. He crouched in front of her and held out the plate. "Eat," he said. She stared at it, then at him. "You keep nothing for yourself," she said. "I can heat what is left," he said. "You eat first." "That is not a discussion." She took the plate with both hands. Her grip was careful, almost too controlled, as if she expected someone to slap it out of her fingers. She speared a Bryn slice with a fork and lifted it to her mouth. When the meat touched her tongue, her whole body reacted. Her shoulders eased back against the wall. Her eyelids fluttered once. She chewed quickly at first, driven by raw hunger, then forced herself to slow when she heard his earlier warning in her head. "Chew," he said anyway. "You throw it up? I am not cleaning it." She swallowed and nodded. The grain curls had soaked up most of the rendered fat and sauce. They clung together in soft clumps. She scooped them up with the side of the fork, lips glistening briefly from the oil before she wiped them with the back of her hand. He watched the color return to her face as she ate. The dull green in her cheeks gained a faint flush. The trembling in her fingers eased once more food reached her stomach. Her breathing moved from shallow gulps to longer pulls. He felt something in his chest unclench with each bite she managed to keep down. "Who are you?" he asked. "Naira," she said, "from Sayran Block, Tier 12. Before they shut the heat off and sent everyone who could walk down here to look for scraps." "What were you before that?" he said. "Laundry, pipe cleaning, carrying," she said. "Anything that did not need training or papers. I'm good at small spaces and dirt." They were good at forgetting we were there. He recognized the pattern. Temporary labor. No contracts. No real records. Easy to cut off. "And why this unit?" he said. "Plenty of vents in this tower. You sit in grid control," she said. "You keep the heat steady. Your riser hums different from the others. It leaks a little. The corridor is warmer by your door. I watched you for 4 nights. You never bring anyone back. You never shout in the corridor. You look at the floor when people drag themselves to the lifts. That usually means a man wants to be left alone and will not throw extra weight around for fun." He took that in without reacting on the surface. Internally, it unsettled him how much she had noticed. "You stalked me for 4 nights," he said. "I observed you," she said. "If I picked wrong, I did not want to die for it." She finished the last piece of Bryn on the plate, then paused with the fork hovering over the remaining grain. She looked up. "Is there some for you?" she asked. "Yes," he said. "Eat." He stood, took the tray back to the kitchen, and served himself what was left. It was less than he usually had after a shift, but the knot in his stomach had loosened just from knowing she had eaten. The meat tasted fine, warm, salty, a little over-seasoned. The grain was sticky and soft. He finished it with less urgency than she had. He poured one larn fruit nectar into a cup and brought it over to her. She blinked. "I cannot drink that," she said. "It is yours. It is in my hand, and you're sitting on my floor," he said. "Everything in this room is mine. Right now, that includes you and this cup. Drink." A short, involuntary smile touched her mouth. It softened her whole face for a moment. "You talk like a man who has written too many orders," she said. "I have," he said. "I prefer writing smaller ones now." She took the cup and sipped. The nectar was thick and slightly grainy, sweet with a sour edge. Her throat moved as she swallowed. The warmth inside her grew another notch. When she had finished half, she handed the cup back. "Enough," she said. "If I drink more, my stomach will complain." He accepted that. He drank the rest and set the cup aside. The room felt different now. The harsh fear from the first moments had faded into something slower. Caution still sat in his muscles, but his mind had shifted from intruder to problem to manage. He leaned against the opposite wall, sliding down until he sat on the floor facing her. The heater hummed between them. "You know who I am?" he said. "You watched. Say it." "You are Yarrick Thalen," she said. "Former ship security. Now thermal grid supervisor for this tier. You arrive at the same time every cycle. You leave at the same time unless there is an alarm. When alarms happen, your face does not change, but you walk faster." He studied her. "You asked around," he said. "People talk," she said. "They complain when their units are cold or too hot. Your name comes up when things work most of the time. That is rare." He did not comment. The details about his past service had trickled into the tower through personnel files and casual gossip. He did not advertise them, but he did not bother to edit them either. "Why are you not on a ship anymore?" she asked. He felt his shoulders tighten. "I did that long enough," he said. "Too much noise. Too many kids with weapons making bad decisions. Now I look at pipe pressure instead of barrel pressure. People still live or die based on what I do. I just do not have to carry a gun while they do it." She nodded slowly. She understood more than he expected. "And you want to keep everyone warm," she said. "I want the system to hold," he said. "That is my job. This tier stays stable. That is enough." She shifted under the blanket. "And me," she said. "What am I in that system?" He looked at her, at the blanket wrapped around her, at the shirt hanging off one shoulder, at the bruised green skin at her wrist where his hand had gripped her too hard when he first pulled her. "You are an anomaly I found next to my heater," he said. "For tonight, you are under my unit's heat use. That makes you my responsibility whether I wanted it or not." Her eyes glistened briefly, but no tears fell. "That sounds like a mission," she said. "It is a small one," he said. "I can handle it." He stood and moved to the sleeping alcove. He dragged his own mat a little farther from the heater than usual to give her the warmest area. He swapped the thin blanket on it for a lighter one from the shelf, keeping the thick one around her. "You sleep there," he said, nodding at the heater corner. "If you wake up cold, you knock on the panel twice. That resets the safety." "And in the morning," she asked, "you still throw me out." "In the morning I go back to work," he said. "I will decide what to do with you before I reach the end of my first pipe report." She watched him as he turned off the main ceiling strip and left only the heater glow. The room dimmed. The orange light painted his face in flat planes as he lay down on his mat. "You could have put me out," she said quietly. "You still can." "I know," he said. "Why did you not?" she asked. He stared at the shadow of the pipes above. "Because I have signed enough forms that ended with someone dead in a hallway," he said. "I am not adding a naked, freezing woman from my own vent to that count if I can help it." She went quiet. Her breathing settled, slow and uneven at first, then smoother as warmth and food pulled her toward sleep. He listened to it. His main mission in the tower had always been clear in his mind. Keep the grid balanced, keep the numbers clean, keep people alive without making a spectacle. Now, Lying in the half-dark while a stranger in a shirt slept by his heater, the edges of that mission shifted. He planned to keep her alive long enough to stand on her own feet outside his door. He planned to guide her through the steps she needed to regain some control, even if she did not see those steps yet. It was more work than he had asked for when he came to Tier 9. It did not feel like a burden. He closed his eyes and forced his muscles to relax one by one. The hum of the pipes filled the silence. Her soft breaths marked a second steady rhythm. For the first time in years, his unit was not empty. Yarrick woke before the tower lights shifted into morning mode. The heater's low hum blended with the soft, steady sound of someone breathing near the wall. He opened his eyes slowly. Nyra was still there. She slept curled under the thermal blanket, knees tucked toward her chest, the dark blue shirt loose around her shoulders. Her white hair had dried unevenly during the night, strands sticking out in soft angles. The blanket rose and fell with each breath. Her fingers were wrapped around the fabric as if she was afraid it would be taken from her. He felt a brief pull of tension in his chest, relief mixed with concern. She hadn't run in the night. That meant she trusted him a little, or she was too weak to move. Both possibilities mattered. He sat up quietly. His joints clicked from the cold edge of the room. He reached for his boots, pulling them on without making noise. A faint rasp came from the floor. Nyra stirred, eyes opening halfway, disoriented at first. When she saw him sitting on his mat, she straightened a little under the blanket. "You're up early," she said, voice rough. "Shift starts soon." He finished tying his boot. "You warm enough?" She nodded, pulling the blanket tighter for a moment before relaxing again. The heater stayed steady. "You said it right. It's my job," he said. She sat up slowly, wincing at stiffness in her legs. The blanket slipped, revealing more of the shirt that hung loose on her thin frame. She pulled the fabric up again, not out of shyness, but habit. Cover what you can before someone tells you to. Her eyes drifted to the kitchen counter. "Do you have water?" He got up and filled a cup from the unit's filter. The water was cool and tasted faintly metallic like most here. 9 taps. He handed it to her. She drank in slow swallows, trying not to embarrass herself by taking too much. He noticed the effort. When she handed the cup back, she glanced around the room. "Your place is quiet. That's intentional." "No family?" she asked, not pushing, just curious. "Not here. Not in the tower." He grabbed his jacket and pulled it on. "I picked this district because people don't bother each other." She looked at him from behind the blanket. "Yet you bothered yourself with me." "That door forced the issue," he said, but the line came out softer than he meant. He turned to gather the tools he needed for his shift, tablet, spare gloves, a small wrench for infield adjustments. As he worked, he mentally checked through unanswered questions from last night. One stood out: how she actually entered his unit. Lock seams weren't easy to pry without tools. "You said you used the seam," he said while checking the tablet's charge level. "Ow!" She shifted on the floor, adjusting her legs under the blanket. "The panel here is older than the ones on higher tiers. The seal doesn't sit flush on the bottom left. I used a flat scrap from the maintenance bay to push it in. That's not something most people notice." "I had time," she said. "Cold makes you study the world differently." He accepted that. It matched what he would have done in her position. Before he could say more, her stomach growled again, loud this time. She tensed, embarrassed, pulling the blanket up to her chin. He opened the cold unit. "There's still some grain curls. Bryn slices if I heat them." "You don't have to," she said quickly. "You fed me last night. I can wait. You're going to work." "You're eating before I leave," he said, already pulling out the tray. She stayed quiet. Her eyes softened in a way that wasn't gratitude exactly, but something steadier, trust forming in small increments. He heated the food, and the smell filled the room again. Warm fat, grain, a faint hint of spice from the Bryn. When the cooker beeped, he separated a portion into a plate and brought it to her. She took it gently. "If I finish this, I'll clean the plate. I don't want to leave anything dirty." "You can do that," he said. Slowly. The sink reacts to fast drains. Tap it lightly before you turn the water on. She blinked. "You're telling me how to use your sink." "You're using my plate," he said. "Makes sense to know the rest." Her lips curved in a small, surprised smile. He stood, pulling his jacket fully closed. I'll be gone 6 hours. Maybe 7 if the tier above us burned through their heat again. She paused with the fork halfway to her mouth. And me? She asked. What do you expect me to do? He met her eyes. Stay warm. Eat. Rest. Don't leave the unit. The neighbor in 09-331 likes to talk. Don't give him a reason. And if someone knocks? She asked. You don't open the door for anyone but me. She nodded. Understood. He reached the panel to leave, then stopped. Something about the blanket wrapped around her shoulders made him hesitate. She looked smaller in daylight, even with the heater behind her. Last thing, he said, if you start feeling dizzy or your hands go numb again, sit closer to the heater and tap the underside twice. That stabilizes the output. She studied him carefully. You planned all this. I planned for the grid. You're not very different. She looked down at her plate, hiding the expression he couldn't quite read. He opened the door. Warm corridor air slid in around his ankles. He stepped out, then turned once more. I come back after shift. Don't unlock anything until I do. I won't, she said. Her voice was steady. He let the door slide shut between them. As soon as the lock sealed, Naira exhaled for real, a long, slow breath she had held since waking. Her body sagged against the wall, but not in fear this time. More like relief she didn't want to admit. She looked around his unit again. The heater, the small table, the 2 cups the sink he warned her about. Her hands tightened around the plate. She ate slowly, carefully, every bite steadying her. Then her eyes drifted to the door he had just walked through. For the first time in weeks, she felt safe enough to stay still. Yerrick returned earlier than expected. His shift had run smoother than most mornings. The upper-tier consumption spike he anticipated never came. Even the alarms stayed quiet. For once, the grid behaved. As he approached his door, he slowed. The draft beneath the panel felt normal this time. No excess heat leaking, no cold sweep from a unit pushed too hard. Good sign. He tapped the lock. The door slid open with its usual soft scrape. Naira was standing near the small table, holding his cup with both hands. Her posture stiffened when she heard the door, and her eyes darted to him like she wasn't sure he was really back so soon. The blanket was folded neatly on the chair now, and the oversized shirt hung loosely on her frame. The sleeves were rolled up unevenly, showing the lines of her thin forearms. You're early, she said. Shift was quiet. He set his jacket on the hook. No one blew out their heat quota for once. She nodded like she didn't know the technical meaning, but understood the relief in his voice. The grain curls container sat rinsed and drying in the rack. The plate she ate from was washed as well. Everything about the room looked untouched otherwise, which told him she had likely stayed still most of the time. He stepped further inside. Her grip tightened slightly around the cup. Anyone come by? He asked. No, I didn't open the door. She hesitated. Someone walked past once. Slow steps. They paused, but they left. Probably the neighbor, he said. He listens more than he talks. She shifted her weight. I stayed quiet. That was the right call. He walked to the heater panel, checking its temperature. It held steady. She must have followed his instructions. He glanced at her again, skin warmer, cheeks slightly less hollow. Her hands didn't shake as much. Did you eat enough? He asked. I ate what you left, she said. I felt heavy after, but in a good way. He opened the cold unit. The contents were low. He'd have to restock soon. His meal times were predictable, but having another person here changed the rhythm. You'll need more, he said. Protein and something with salt. Your body's catching up. She placed the cup gently on the table. I could try to stretch food if it helps. You don't stretch anything, he said, sharper than intended. Not while you're rebuilding. A flicker of surprise crossed her face. He softened his tone. I meant you don't ration yourself until you collapse again. We'll get what you need. She whispered, almost too soft to hear. The word hit him in a place he didn't expect. He cleared his throat. I'm going to cook, he said. Sit where you're comfortable. She didn't sit immediately. Instead, she stepped closer, stopping near the edge of the table, careful not to enter his personal space too abruptly. Can I ask something? She said. Go ahead. You said this morning you'd decide what to do with me. Her eyes lifted reluctantly. Have you decided? He paused. Her question wasn't fearful, just steady, braced for either answer. "I decided you're staying," he said. "At least until you can stand on your own without shaking or starving." She swallowed once hard. Her shoulders dropped a fraction, tension bleeding out in a slow exhale. "Thank you," she said. "I won't waste it." He nodded toward the heater. "Warm up. Food will take a little." She moved closer to the heater, sitting where she had slept, pulling her legs under her. Her posture wasn't as guarded now. Her eyes followed him as he opened the stores. He worked in silence for a moment, heating a pack of salted brin strips and a bowl of softened root grain. The smells filled the room: hot fat, steam, a faint mineral scent from the grains. While he cooked, he noticed something he hadn't seen last night. Her feet were scraped. Faint red marks along the sides, small cuts near the heel. Running between vents, stepping on cold metal, hiding wherever she could. That was the story in those injuries. He set the food into the cooker slot and turned. "Your feet," he said. "You walked a long way before getting here." She looked down at them like she wasn't sure they were part of her. "I didn't feel them." Cold takes away the feeling after a while. "I have a med patch kit," he said. "After you eat, I'll clean those cuts." "You don't have to." "I do," he said. "Infection spread fast in this humidity. I'm not dealing with that." She didn't argue. When the cooker chimed, he placed the plates on the table. She rose carefully and sat opposite him, still wearing his oversized shirt. Her movements remained slow but more deliberate now. He handed her a fork. She waited until he started eating before she took her own first bite. A small gesture, respect or uncertainty, it didn't matter. It told him she was adjusting to being around someone again. The brin strips were crisp at the edges, soft in the center. The root grain had absorbed the broth, making it dense and warm. She ate steadily, pausing only once to catch her breath. "This tastes better than last night," she said quietly. "Different pack," he said. "Better cut." She studied him across the table. "You cook like you're measuring fuel levels." "It's all grid work," he said. "Balance. Timing." "You're not as cold as you act," she said. "You don't know me well enough to say that." "I know enough to see what you didn't do last night," she said. "You didn't throw me out. You didn't ask what I could give you. You didn't ask why I was alone in a vent. You weren't in shape for questions." "And now?" she asked. He set his fork down, not harshly, just with finality. "Now I'm asking," he said. "Not because you owe me anything. I just need to know what you're carrying into this unit." She looked down at her plate. Her fingers tightened around the fork. "My block shut down," she said. "Heat first. Water next. People left. Some were told to leave. Some weren't told anything. They just woke up freezing. You said you came from Tier 12. She nodded. "Lower blocks get repairs last. Sometimes never. We heard your tier still had heat. I followed pipes until I reached a riser junction. I came down 3 tiers that day." "How many hours?" "All night," she said. "I didn't stop. If I stopped, I froze." He leaned back slightly. "And the others?" "We scattered. Everyone went a different way. Some looked for empty units. Some followed the drone routes, hoping for food drops. I stayed near pipes. Pipes meant heat. And you picked this one. You keep the grid stable," she said. "Your unit was warmer than the corridor. It felt like the last place before dying." Her voice didn't shake, but something behind it carried weight he recognized. He had heard that tone in evac shelters years ago, people talking not about fear, but about exhaustion. He stood and retrieved the medkit. She watched him open it and kneel beside her chair. "I can clean my own feet," she said softly. "I know," he said, "but I'll do it faster." She hesitated, then extended one foot slightly, resting her heel on the floor. He reached gently, supporting the arch with one hand. Her skin was warm now, not icy like last night. The cuts were small but raw. He cleaned them with steady movements, applying a thin layer of patch gel that would seal on contact. She winced once. Not dramatic, just a sharp intake of breath she tried to hide. "Sorry," he said. "It's fine," she replied. "Just been a while since anyone touched me without wanting something." He glanced up. Her face held no accusation, only fact. He returned to his work. When he finished the second foot, he stood. "You'll walk easier now." She lowered her legs carefully. "Thank you." He closed the medkit and set it aside. The room felt warmer now, not just from the heater. Something in the air had shifted, more balanced, less tense. He looked at her again. You'll need clothes. Real ones. That shirt won't do outside this unit. She blinked. You're taking me outside? You can't hide in here forever, he said. And we need supplies. People will look at me. They look at everyone, he said. Let them. A long silence settled. She studied him with a different kind of attention this time. You act like you're doing maintenance, she murmured. I am, he said, just on a different system. Her lips curved into a small, tired smile. He didn't return it, but something in his chest tightened again. He moved to the door and checked the corridor camera from the side panel. Clear. When he turned back to her, she was already gathering the blanket around her shoulders like a shawl, adjusting the sleeves of his shirt so they didn't slide past her hands. She looked unsure but ready. Stay close when we go, he said. Tier 9 is safe enough, but people stare when they're bored. She rose slowly, steady on her patched feet. I'll stay close, she said. They stepped toward the door together. The corridor light seeped under the panel, waiting. The door slid open, letting a thin line of corridor light spill across the floor. Yarrick stepped out first, scanning both directions with the same quiet precision he used on patrol years ago. His stance widened slightly, ready to block or guide if needed. The morning cycle had fully started. Distant chatter echoed through the tier, and somewhere above, a pipe groaned as thermal pressure shifted. Nyira stepped out behind him, wrapped in the dark blanket like a shawl. The oversized shirt hung a little tighter now that she'd tied a strip of cloth around her waist to keep it from slipping. Her patched feet touched the cold metal carefully, testing her balance. She stayed close enough that their arms almost brushed. He locked the unit and began walking. She followed without needing instruction. Tier 9's walkway felt different to her in daylight. The amber ceiling strips cast long bars of muted color across the corridor, and people had started moving between units. Most kept their heads down. A few glanced up when they saw her, green-skinned, underfed, wrapped in borrowed clothes, but none approached. The tier's quiet rules held. Unless someone collapsed or started tearing out pipes, everyone minded their own business. But she still shrank slightly when an older woman passed them, staring a second too long. Yarrick noticed. He slowed his pace just enough to position himself a half step ahead, giving her a physical shield without making a point of it. She eased forward again, matching his stride. Which way are we going? She asked. Market Coil, he said. There's a vendor who sells discount clothes near the grain stalls. She blinked. You have a vendor you trust? I have one who doesn't overcharge, he said. That's close enough to trust here. They reached the walkway junction. The air smelled faintly of steamed grain and wet metal, drifting from the market area. Stacked pipes ran along the walls, some wrapped in insulation, some bare and rusting. Drops of condensation tapped steadily onto the floor. Nyira's eyes scanned everything: ceilings, alcoves, faces. A habit built from weeks of moving through dangerous spaces. Yarrick glanced at her. You can relax your shoulders, he said. No one here is hunting you. I'm not used to anyone saying that like it's a fact, she answered, though she tried to loosen her posture. They turned a corner into the wider market coil. The space opened into a broad ring walkway lined with small stalls. Vendors arranged packages of grain curls, dried fruits, cleaning cloths, cheap thermal wraps, and bowls of brin slices simmering in portable heaters. The smell of cooked fat drifted through the air, mixed with powdered spices and cleaning solvent. People moved slowly through the space, bartering in low voices. A few children darted between adults, chasing each other around stalls. Nyira froze when a pair of teens looked her way, whispering. She instinctively pulled the blanket higher over her collarbone. Yarrick stepped closer. Ignore them. They've never seen someone like me, she said quietly. They've seen plenty, he said, just not someone who made it down here alive. Her eyes flicked to him, unsure if he meant it as reassurance or blunt truth. It worked as both. They reached a stall with faded fabric banners pinned above crates of clothing. The vendor, a short man with a shaved head and a scar across his cheek, looked up immediately. Phelan, he said, didn't expect you this early. Need clothes, Yarrick replied. He angled his head toward Nyira. Something warm, something that fits. The vendor eyed her, taking in the thin arms, the oversized shirt, the blanket. "Sector girl?" he asked. "She's with me," Yerrick said, voice firm enough to close the topic. The vendor raised both hands in a small gesture of retreat. "All right, I'll find something." He began pulling folded garments from crates. A black wrap skirt split along one leg for easier movement, a fitted thermal top with adjustable ties at the sides, and a long dark green shawl meant for cooler tiers. "These will fit once she eats more," the vendor said. "They're durable. Cheap. Cheap is good," Yerrick said. Naira touched the fabric of the shawl. Her fingers brushed the texture lightly, like she was afraid it would tear. "It's soft," she whispered. "It'll keep your back warm," the vendor said. "Better than that blanket." She shot a quick glance at Yerrick, checking if she was allowed to speak for herself. He nodded once. "I like it," she said. Yerrick reached for his credit tab. "We'll take all three." The vendor hesitated, then spoke lower. "You sure, Thalen? These aren't returnable." "I didn't ask to return anything," Yerrick said. The man nodded, rang the total, and passed the clothes over. Yerrick handed the bundle to Naira. "We'll find a washroom before heading back." She held the clothes close, arms wrapped around them with a care that looked almost ceremonial. Something in the weight and warmth of the fabric made her throat tighten. Having her own clothes, something that belonged to no one else, was a change she hadn't prepared for. She followed Yerrick to a small communal washroom off the main walkway. He stopped outside. "I'll wait here," he said. "Go change. Take your time." She hesitated. "If I take too long, I'm not going anywhere." She nodded, slipped inside the washroom, and closed the door behind her. Inside, the lights buzzed faintly above her. The mirror was scratched but usable. She laid the new clothes on a dry section of counter, then untied the fabric strip around her waist. The oversized shirt slid off her shoulders, brushing against her skin with a dull chill. She examined herself briefly. Thin, marked with faint bruises from sleeping in bad corners, ribs visible. But her face looked different today. Less hollow, more awake. She pulled on the thermal top. It clung comfortably to her torso, the material tight but not restrictive. The wrap skirt fastened easily around her hips, leaving one leg visible along the split. The shawl draped over her shoulders, long enough to fall to her elbows. When she stepped back and saw her reflection, she looked like someone who belonged to the tier, not someone hiding inside it. She carried the old shirt in her hand as she returned to the door. When she opened it, Yerrick was exactly where she left him, standing with his arms folded, weight on one leg. His eyes moved over her outfit, not lingering, not invasive, just taking measure. "This fits you," he said. Her cheeks warmed. "I haven't worn real clothes in weeks. Feels different." "Yes," she said. "Feels like a life I almost forgot." "Good," he said. "You're keeping them." They started walking back toward the market coil. This time she stepped a little taller. Not much, but enough that it showed in the way her shawl settled across her shoulders. They stopped at a food stall so Yerrick could restock supplies. The vendor sliced fresh brin strips on a heated plates, steam rising in curls. Yerrick ordered extra portions for storage. Naira watched him work the transaction with calm, practiced movements. "You buy more than usual," she said. "You'll eat more than last night," he said. She didn't argue. As they headed toward the exit of the market, someone brushed past her shoulder. A young man, maybe 20, walking too fast and not looking where he was going. The impact wasn't harsh, but she stumbled a step sideways. Her fingers flew to her shawl to keep it from slipping. "Watch it," Yerrick said, stepping in front of her before she regained balance. The man tossed a glance back. "She's in the walkway. Move her." "She's with me," Yerrick said. His tone wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It carried weight. The young man's eyes flicked from Jarrick's stance to Naira's cautious posture. He muttered something under his breath and pushed onward, disappearing into the crowd. Naira exhaled. Her hand trembled slightly as she adjusted the shawl. "You all right?" Yerrick asked. "Yes." She steadied her breathing. "I just expected him to push harder." "He didn't because he saw me," Yerrick said. "Here, 9 works that way. People here read posture faster than they read speech." She glanced at him, absorbing the meaning behind his words. He planned to keep her protected, long enough for her to learn how to walk these corridors without shrinking. As they left the market and stepped back into the narrow residential walkway, the noise of the crowd faded behind them. The floor was colder here, cleaner, dimmer. Yerrick walked at a pace she could match. She stayed close, but now it was choice, not fear. When they reached his door, she paused before entering. "Thank you," she said. "For clothes, food, space, all of it. You don't owe me anything," he said as he unlocked the panel. "Just keep getting stronger." She stepped inside, the heater's orange glow warming her face. For the first time since she'd crawled through the vent, she looked like she was starting to believe she had a place to stand. Yerrick closed the door behind them, and the unit's warmth settled around the space. The heater hummed steadily, casting an orange glow across the floor. Naira stood near the center of the room, her new clothes settling naturally around her, thermal top fitting snug along her torso, the wrap skirt falling clean along her leg, the dark shawl draped neatly over her shoulders. She held the old shirt folded in her hands, unsure what to do with it. "You can throw it out," Yerrick said, hanging his jacket. "It's not worth keeping." She looked down at the shirt. "It kept me alive for a few nights. It won't help you anymore." After a moment, she placed it gently in the disposal slot. When the panel lit, she pressed her palm against the sensor, watching the old fabric disappear into the recycler. Something in her shoulders loosened, letting go of the last piece of where she'd been. Yerrick moved toward the small table. "Sit. You walk more than you should on those patched feet." She obeyed without hesitation this time. The shawl slipped slightly when she sat, revealing the line of her collarbone and the subtle tension in her neck. She adjusted it again, more out of habit than discomfort. Yerrick grabbed the food pack he'd bought and set on the counter. "We'll eat first, then you rest." "I can help," she said. "You already did enough today." "I didn't." "You carried everything. You dealt with people staring." "You." "Naira," he said, turning toward her. "You're recovering. That's the job you have right now." She lowered her eyes, absorbing his tone. Not irritated, not soft, just factual. He heated the brin strips and softened the grain. The steam rose from the plates, carrying a sharper, richer scent than earlier. When he set her portion in front of her, she hesitated only for a moment before eating. Steady, controlled bites, determined not to take advantage, determined not to appear starving even though her body still reacted with urgency. Halfway through the meal, she paused with her fork in hand. "Yerrick, today in the market, when that man pushed me," she took a breath. "I thought you were going to leave me to handle it." He looked directly at her. "I won't put you in a position you can't manage." "You said that like it was obvious." "It is," he said. Her fingers tightened around the fork. "People from my tier don't get defended. Ever. If something happens, we disappear or we run. You're not on tier 12 anymore." Her eyes lifted, searching his expression for anything misleading. She found nothing. She set the fork down. "I don't know how to be someone worth defending." "You don't have to know," he said. "You just have to stop assuming you're a burden." A small breath left her, almost like tension leaking out on its own. She looked at her plate again, grounding herself. After they finished eating, she carried her dish to the sink without being asked. She tapped the side twice, exactly as he taught her, then turned on the water in a slow, regulated stream. "You remembered," he said. "You told me once," she replied. "I listened." When she dried her hands, she leaned lightly on the counter. "Can I ask something?" "Go ahead. Why did you move to this tier?" "You said earlier that you picked it because people don't bother each other, but people choose that for reasons." He let out a slow breath. She had been paying attention. "I came from a busier block," he said. "Too many people, too many demands, too many places where someone always needed something. I needed distance." "From what?" "Noise," he said. "Crowds. People thinking they know what you should do with your life." Her eyes softened. "Were you responsible for people before?" "For systems," he answered carefully. "Same thing, sometimes." She absorbed that with the same quiet patience she'd shown since entering his life. She didn't ask more. She didn't push beyond what he was willing to give. She shifted in place. "And now I'm here, in your quiet tier, in your quiet life." "You're not noise," he said. She froze slightly, not out of fear, but because she had no ready place to store words like that. He walked to the heater to check the panel again, giving her space to gather herself. After a moment, she stepped closer. Yarrick, if I stay here longer, what do you expect from me? He turned, leaning one hand on the heater frame. I expect you to heal, eat, sleep, get your strength back. That's all. That's all for now. She wanted the meaning to be bigger, but she didn't know how to ask for more. Instead, she touched the edge of her shawl, grounding herself in the new fabric. He studied her posture, steady but unsure, hopeful but cautious. He recognized the signs. He had seen them in people rebuilding their trust after losing everything too fast. You'll have more responsibilities once you're ready, he said. Not because I demand them, because you'll want your independence back. She looked relieved. I do want that. Not today, but soon. We'll get there. Silence settled gently between them. Not heavy, not awkward, just a natural pause in a day that had already shifted both of their lives. A soft knock sounded suddenly at the door. Naira stiffened immediately, shoulders rising, breath catching. Her hand clutched her shawl, knuckles pale. Yarrick lifted a hand slightly. Stay here. He stepped toward the panel, checked the camera. It was dark, someone standing too close for the lens to catch clearly. He narrowed his eyes. Who is it? He asked. A voice came through the panel. Male. Older. Phelan. It's your neighbor. Naira's eyes widened. She backed up a step, but didn't run. Yarrick opened the door halfway, blocking the view of the room with his body. What do you need? He asked. The neighbor leaned on the threshold, glancing past Jarrick's shoulder, even though he couldn't see anything. Heat in my unit's dipping again, he said. Didn't know if your meter picked up anything unusual. You're good with the system. Thought you might know. Yarrick didn't move from the doorway. I'll check the corridor panel later. You got someone in there? The neighbor asked casually. Jarrick's tone stayed even. Does it matter? The neighbor raised his eyebrows. Didn't think you had company, that's all. Now you know, Yarrick said. A short silence. Then the man stepped back. All right, just checking. Let me know about the heat. He walked away. Yarrick closed the door fully. Naira stood near the table, her breathing quick but controlled. He knew. He doesn't know anything, Yarrick said. And even if he suspects, he won't interfere. He's just nosy. What if he comes back? He won't. Not today. She swallowed, tension ebbing slowly from her shoulders. You're safe here, he said, quietly, but firm enough to anchor her. Her eyes met his, and for the first time since he found her trembling near the heater, her fear didn't overpower her. I believe you, she said. She meant it. The room had gone quiet after the neighbor left, but the silence wasn't the same as before. It felt heavier, warmer, shaped by everything unspoken between them. The heater's glow softened the edges of the small apartment, washing their skin in orange light that clung to every curve and shadow. Yarrick sat on the edge of the bed to remove his boots. He unlatched the first one automatically, but his attention kept drifting toward Naira. She stood near the table, her shawl sliding down her arms as she exhaled slowly, still steadying herself after the scare. Her wrap skirt shifted with her breath, opening slightly along her thigh. The sight stirred something deep inside him, something he was trying not to name too quickly. She noticed him watching. Instead of turning away, she came closer. Are you all right? She asked quietly. He nodded, though his chest felt tight. You handled everything better than you think. I handled it because you were here. She stopped in front of him, close enough that he felt the warmth of her skin. The room seemed to shrink around them, leaving only the sound of her breathing. Yarrick, she said, voice lower than before. You don't have to keep distance from me. His pulse kicked. I'm not keeping distance. You're trying, she said, stepping between his knees. But your eyes say something else. He didn't answer. He couldn't. She was right, and she knew it. She lifted one knee onto the bed beside his leg. The mattress dipped. Her balance shifted easily as she swung her other leg across him and settled into his lap, straddling him without hesitation. Her hands rested on his shoulders, warm and sure. His breath left him in a short, unsteady sound he failed to contain. Naira studied his reaction closely, almost curiously. Have you had someone sit like this before? No, he admitted, voice rougher than intended. She smiled. Not a playful smile, but a slow, pleased one, as if learning something new about him unraveled the tension inside her. Her fingertips brushed the sides of his neck first, then slid to his jaw. Her thumb traced the faint stubble along his cheek. His muscles tightened under her touch, not in resistance, but in surrender. "You always stand so strong," she murmured. But here, her hands traveled down the line of his throat to his collar. "Here you're warm." He swallowed hard. His hands hovered at her hips, not touching yet. He didn't want to assume too much. "Yarrick," she said again, leaning closer until her breath warmed the corner of his mouth. "You can hold me." When he did, his hands closed around her waist with a pressure he didn't plan. She let out a soft sound, half exhale, half pleasure, and her back arched slightly into his grip. The noise sent heat through him like a jolt. She lowered her face to his neck. Her white hair brushed his collarbone as she pressed her mouth to his skin. Not a kiss, but a slow, deliberate touch. Her lips trailed along the warm line of his throat, then higher to the edge of his jaw. He let out a small, involuntary sound, almost a groan caught in his throat. He tried to steady it, but couldn't. She paused, listening to the change in his breath. "You like that?" He didn't trust his voice. He tightened his hold on her hips instead. Encouraged, she leaned in again. This time she used her tongue in a slow stroke against his jawline, tasting the heat there. His breath broke completely, sharp and uncontrolled. Her hands slid into his hair, guiding his head slightly back so she could explore the new skin she revealed. Neck, throat, the place where his pulse hammered hardest. He had never responded like this to anyone. Every touch from her sent a raw, unfiltered reaction through him. His grip on her hips turned firmer without him realizing, holding her in place as if grounding himself. "Yarrick," she whispered against his skin. "You're shaking." "I know," he answered, barely audible. Her thighs tightened around him. The movement dragged a quiet, startled noise from him, one he couldn't stop even if he tried. She stilled, surprised by the sound, then smiled again, eyes darkening with something warm and eager. "You never let yourself lose control," she said softly. "But you're letting go now, only with you." That answer landed deep. She cupped his face, bringing his forehead to hers. Their breaths mingled, warm and uneven. Her confidence didn't feel dominant. It felt curious, devoted, like she was learning him piece by piece. His reactions fascinated her, drove her to explore further. Her mouth returned to his neck, slower this time, savoring him. Her tongue traced a path up to the edge of his ear, and his entire body tensed beneath her. He let out another sound, low, rough, impossible for him to hide. His hand slid up her back under the shawl, feeling the shape of her spine, the heat of her skin. She shivered at his touch, a soft tremor that pushed her closer to him. She kissed him then, not on the lips yet, but just below them, the corner of his mouth, gentle but full of intent. He exhaled shakily, eyes closing as her lips lingered there. When she finally pulled back enough to look at him, her breathing was almost as unsteady as his. "You feel different when I'm close," she said, stronger and weaker at the same time. He brushed a strand of her white hair behind her ear. "You do this to me, and you like it?" "Yes." She settled more firmly onto his lap, her body fitting against his in a way that left no space between them. His reaction to the closeness was immediate, impossible for him to hide. She felt it, paused, and looked into his eyes with a certainty that made his breath catch. "We stop if you want," she said. "I don't want to stop." Her hand slid down his chest slowly, feeling every breath he took, every tremor he tried and failed to contain. "Then let me learn you," she whispered. He nodded once, voice gone. She leaned in again, mouth finding the side of his throat. Her tongue traced a slow line upward, her lips closing softly against his skin in a way that made his grip tighten around her with a low, helpless sound he couldn't control. The heat between them deepened, their bodies moving in small, instinctive ways that pulled them closer, pushed breath out of them, made new sounds rise without permission. Every motion, every touch, rewrote the distance they once held between them. Tonight, nothing about their connection was fragile or uncertain. Tonight, it was chosen, slow, deliberate, and overwhelming. Her breath warmed the side of his throat as she lingered there, holding his face gently between her hands. Jarek's pulse hammered under her mouth, and she felt every shift in him, every tremor, every shallow breath he couldn't hide anymore. When she pulled back slightly, her legs tightened around his waist, holding him in place with an ease that sent a new wave of heat through his body. He looked up at her, still trying to steady himself, but nothing in him wanted distance. Her white hair fell forward, brushing his cheeks and jaw. The heater behind them cast a soft orange glow through the strands, giving them a faint warmth as they slid across his skin. "You're still shaking," she whispered, "and you're doing it on purpose." Her smile was quiet, confident. "I wanted to know how far your control goes." "Not far," he said, voice rough. "Not with you this close." She shifted on his lap, slow, intentional. His breath caught, and she felt his hands close around her waist again, fingers digging in with a restraint that wasn't entirely restraint. He didn't move her. He just held her, grounding himself while his body reacted without permission. "You always try to be steady," she said, sliding her fingertips along the back of his neck, exploring the tense muscles there. "Always holding everything in, but you don't have to hold anything when I'm with you." He swallowed, unable to answer right away. His breath brushed her collarbone, warm and unsteady. She moved closer, their foreheads touching. His hands rose from her waist to her back, following the line of her spine, feeling the warmth of her skin beneath the loose folds of her top. She exhaled softly at his touch, leaning into him, her body aligning with his in a slow, deliberate motion. Her lips brushed the corner of his mouth, barely a touch, but enough to make him tense beneath her. She didn't kiss him yet. She wanted to feel every reaction he had first. "Jarek," she murmured against his skin, "you're holding your breath." "I noticed," he said, barely getting the words out. She cupped his jaw again and tilted his face upward. Her thumb traced the line of his lower lip, feeling the warmth there. His breath hitched again, and he instinctively tightened his grip on her hips, pulling her closer without meaning to. She liked that. Her smile deepened. When her mouth finally met his, it wasn't rushed or forceful. It was slow, warm, and deliberate, pressure building gradually as if testing how much of him she could unravel with a single kiss. He responded immediately, almost too intensely, fingers tightening around her as if anchoring himself. His breath escaped him in a low sound he couldn't control. She deepened the kiss, tilting her head slightly, letting her lips guide his. He followed, but not passively. His hands began to explore her back and hips with more certainty, feeling the curve of her waist, the warmth of her skin, the way she moved against him. Every touch was measured, reverent, but alive with the unfamiliar intensity running through him. When she pulled back for air, both of them were breathing unevenly. "You kiss like you've been waiting to," she whispered. "I have." She brushed her lips along his jaw, then to the side of his neck, where she felt his pulse jump under her mouth. He reacted instantly, a low, involuntary sound caught in his throat. She pressed another slow kiss there, deliberately gentle, wanting to see if the sound happened again. It did. He exhaled sharply, unable to contain it. "Jarek," she murmured against his skin, "I like how you sound when you stop trying to control everything." His grip on her hips tightened again, drawing her closer. "You're making it impossible not to." "Good." Her hands slid down his chest, tracing the lines of his muscles through the thin fabric of his shirt. When her fingers reached the hem, she tugged it upward slightly. He raised his arms without hesitation, letting her remove it. The shirt dropped to the floor. She ran her palms slowly across his bare torso, over the scar below his ribs, over the tension in his abdomen, up toward his shoulders. He inhaled sharply at the first touch of her warm hands. She leaned down and pressed her lips gently against the scar, as if acknowledging something he had never spoken about. He froze, breath shuddering. No one had ever touched that place with care. She felt the shift in him, the way his hand rose to her back instinctively, holding her closer. "Does it hurt?" she asked softly. "Not anymore," he said. "It just means something." She kissed the scar again, slower, then trailed her lips upward toward his chest. Every inch she explored drew a different reaction from him. Small, unguarded sounds, tightening muscles, breath pulling deeper and faster. When her lips reached his collarbone, his hands slid up her back, fingers threading in her hair, not guiding her, but urging her gently to keep going. She straddled him more firmly now, her knees bracketing his hips, her body pressing fully against his. The movement tore another quiet sound from him, a deep one, surprised and raw. "Yarek," she whispered, lifting her head enough to see his face. "Look at me." He did. His pupils were wide, breathing still heavy, jaw tight from the effort of holding himself together. "You don't have to be careful," she said. "Not tonight." His resolve slipped. He pulled her closer and kissed her again, stronger this time, with everything he'd been holding back. She answered with a soft, eager sound, her hands sliding into his hair as their bodies pressed together in a slow, deliberate rhythm that neither of them tried to break. The heater hummed. The rain outside softened against the metal of the building. Their breaths filled the room, fast, uneven, rising with every shift of weight. Every kiss, every involuntary sound pulled from him and answered by her. Tonight, nothing between them was hesitant. Tonight, their closeness deepened into something neither could step back from anymore. The room stayed warm long after their breaths began to steady. Naira didn't move from where she sat straddling him. She stayed with her forehead resting lightly against his, as if she wanted to feel the rhythm of his breath settle against her own. Yara kept his hands on her back, not gripping anymore, just holding her in a way that felt right, firm, steady, protective without pulling her away from the closeness she had chosen. Her white hair brushed across his shoulders as she shifted, adjusting her weight until she was settled comfortably in his lap again. The movement drew a soft sound from him, low and involuntary. She paused, listening. "You make that sound every time I move," she whispered with a small, warm smile. His jaw tightened slightly, a quiet embarrassment flickering across his face. "I'm still trying to get myself under control. I like you better without control." He let out a slow breath, the kind that came from something deeper than desire. His hand slid up her back, fingertips brushing the warm skin beneath her loose shirt. He felt her shiver lightly at the touch, leaning closer as though craving more of his hands on her. They stayed like that for a moment, their bodies touching in a calm, steady closeness that felt even more intimate than the heat between the minutes earlier. Nothing rushed, nothing forced, just a quiet settling into each other. Eventually, she lowered herself carefully until she was curled against his chest, her legs still bracketing his hips, but her body resting fully on him. His arms wrapped around her instinctively, anchoring her. "Yarek," she murmured, her voice softened by exhaustion and something more tender. "I didn't think I'd ever feel safe like this." "You are," he said, his voice a low rumble against her ear. "You're safe with me, completely." She rested her cheek against his shoulder, feeling the steady rise and fall of his breathing. It grounded her in a way she had never experienced, quiet, certain, solid. His heartbeat was stronger now, not frantic like it had been earlier, but warm and steady. She closed her eyes. "I want all of this to continue." "It will," he said without hesitation. "If you stay, I'll make sure you have everything you need." She lifted her head slightly to look at him. "What do you need?" He blinked, caught off guard by the question. Few people ever asked him that. After a moment, he said, "I need someone who chooses me. Not out of fear, not out of obligation. Someone who wants to be here." She touched his jaw gently with her fingertips. "I'm here because I want to be." His chest tightened at that. It was simple, quiet, but it hit him with more force than he expected. She moved again, pressing closer to him, her breath warming his neck. The heater hummed quietly in the background. Rain tapped softly against the metal outside. It was the calmest the room had ever felt. After a long silence, she whispered, "Can we leave this tier someday? Somewhere warmer, somewhere with more light." Jarek's hand brushed down her back. I've been offered a transfer to a lower district. Bigger rooms, real sunlight, thermal gardens. She lifted her head, eyes wide. Why didn't you tell me? I wasn't sure I'd take it. Why not? Because I didn't want to go alone, he said. And I didn't know if you'd want to come with me. Her breath caught. She shifted in his lap, holding his face between her hands. Yarek, if you're going, I'm going with you. He felt something warm and solid settle in his chest. For a moment, he could only look at her, absorbing the certainty in her expression. Then tomorrow, he said quietly, we'll register as a pair. They won't question it if we walk in together. Her eyes softened, and she leaned forward to press a gentle kiss to the corner of his mouth. You're choosing me where everyone can see. I am. She rested her forehead against his, smiling softly. Then I'll choose you back. They stayed close a while longer, simply breathing together, letting the weight of their decision settle into the space between them. Later, when she rose from his lap, she didn't move far. She sat beside him on the bed, her legs touching his, her hand resting lightly on his thigh. Her posture was more relaxed than he had ever seen it. No tension in her shoulders, no guarded stiffness. Yarek, she said quietly, there's something else. He turned toward her. What is it? She looked down at her abdomen, then placed her hand over it. My cycle should have shifted by now. It hasn't. He stared at her, breath catching. She continued, voice steady but soft. It happens quickly for my kind if the body feels safe. If it finds a future to prepare for. He covered her hand with his, warm and steady. You think you might be? She nodded once. I think so. His grip tightened gently, not out of fear, but out of something deeper, acceptance settling into him with surprising certainty. If it's true, we'll take care of everything. You won't face it alone. She leaned into him slowly, pressing her cheek to his shoulder. I want to raise a child somewhere warm, she whispered. Not in these cold corridors. Then that's where we'll go. Outside. The rain on the metal slowed to a soft patter. The heater glowed steadily. Their bodies stayed close, their hands joined over the quiet promise between them. Tomorrow, they would sign their names together. Tonight, they simply held each other. No fear, no distance, no uncertainty, knowing the life ahead of them had already begun.